A modern day warrior, mean stride. Luke's and Zack podcast, mean pride. That's all I got. I know nothing about Rush.
I mean, welcome, folks. It's April. We're talking Lucas and Zack movies, which, in case was not evident, are movies the two of us both love. We maybe should have picked a more descriptive title for that. It's birthday month.
It's birthday month.
That's true. It's birthday month. We actually it was like, what, we're 2 days apart or something?
Sure.
We're very close together. Our birthdays 20th? Are very close.
Let's all share our birthdays. Everyone at home, please say your birthday at this point. Mine's April 20th.
April 23rd, so it's 3 days apart.
Oh God, yes, that's very too close. Far. Why are we doing this?
All right, new topic is canceled. We are now doing Jon Favreau acting month.
Honestly,
Jamie Presley month.
Not against Jon Favreau acting month.
It is a very bizarre career. We were here to talk the wonderful, I guess, a bromance rom-com, I guess is the way you could describe it. I Love You, Man. Paul Rudd, Jason Segel, really fun. Before we do that,
I have a lot of thoughts about the use of bro, and it almost ruins this movie. You know, it's a great movie, so I don't like calling it a bro rom-com. I don't know if I can handle that. Or brom-com. Oh, I hate that. I can't remember my mouth.
I wouldn't call that. I'm just saying that's like probably the most apt description of it, because it is a rom-com, but it's a rom-com where the pivotal relationship is not the couple necessarily. It's more the best friend couple.
It's a rom-com for friends.
But it's a bromance rom-com because it's about
same romance. It's still just a romance. It's just a non-sexual romance. That's what real friendship are.
Fine, platonic male rom-com.
There you go. Yeah.
Before we get into deep, let's hop over to last letter.
Too deep, and I'm trying to keep. I wasn't done with songs. I didn't get enough out of me during the Rush ones. I had to sing.
You didn't. That was your fault that you did not look up the rest of the lyrics. That's all.
I should have just went with Vampire Weekend. So it's okay.
Let's do last Letterboxd movie. Zach Ford, why don't you tell us what's the last thing you watched?
I recently watched this Hong Kong romance called Twilight's Kiss. It is about two men, post 60, I think 65, 70. One retired, one kind of trying to avoid retirement. Both have families of their own, have children. One is married at the time, and kind of find each other kind of cruising, looking for a, male lover. There's like a gay male spawn that they kind of hook up in, but it becomes, something a lot deeper and more subtle than that. This movie, it has the scenes of sex between the two guys that's done really intimately, but it's really not the point. The relationship is seen as deeper than that. It's not just a sexual relationship, but more about them kind of reflecting on the lives they could have been if, one, they've made different choices, but also, of course, if, the Hong Kong society was different and maybe more accepting if they grew up at a different time. Because there's a lot of scenes within a kind of community group or support group for gay men over the age of 60, and thinking about how all these men kind of have different stories on, what they faced being gay at a time, or all the secrets they had to keep in the lives they lived instead of the ones that they probably would have chose. It's really just a movie about the different path that your life could have taken if circumstances were different. And these two guys having a moment is one of those kind of passing, fleeting romances that, once again, because their circumstances they can never stick with. It may be also just a little bit of how they got so used to holding the secrets they couldn't fully commit themselves for longer. So I think it's a really complex movie. I wanted to watch it because I think we have an awareness and empathy with gay culture within America. I think we know quite a bit, but I still feel like I don't have full awareness of how that relates to other cultures, especially the older men in different cultures are in Hong Kong. So that's why foreign movies are great. They help you learn about the world and learn about different cultures and gain empathy. So I think this movie exceeds at doing that for me, and it's a lovely and very gentle film. and sweet, and of course heartbreaking in the way I described it. So I do highly recommend it.
Interesting. It certainly sounds interesting. I think I've heard about this, and people seem to be liking it. But I'll be honest, it was a little outside my radar. Is it available anywhere? Is it readily available anywhere?
It is available for rental on Amazon, but for like the $6 rental, I don't know. Remember how much?
Okay, so it's like the slightly pricier rental, but yeah, definitely worth the rental price, you'd say.
Yeah, I would say just because it is one that has gone way under the radar, which in spring or winter should not happen because it's not like there's tons of huge movies out. So let's praise all the good movies. That's why I want to take time to do this. Let's get people to see the good stuff.
I think it just kind of falls into the trap of if you're a foreign movie and you are not really in contention for the Oscars, those movies tend to fall to the wayside. And a lot of times, some of the best foreign films, because of the very, very weird way the Oscars are put together.
It's actually a $10 rental.
Okay. All right. A little more expensive. But, the Oscars does this weird thing where, like, each country picks their shortlisted film. And quite a lot often, the shortlist choice is not the best movie from that country. So you always see weird things happen where, like, for foreign films get just pushed aside a little bit. I will, keep my eye out for it.
Keep an eye out for it. It may reach a streaming service at some point.
It probably will. Those tend to. That seems like something that a streaming service would see value in. My last Letterboxd movie was a rewatch of the Disney animated film Aladdin, which is probably one of my favorite Disney animated films. At least top 2 or 3. There's not a lot to say that hasn't been said. Robin Williams is really fun as a genie. It has some really good songs. I do think the opening song is actually weirdly done better in the live action remake. I think they cracked something to make that song a little bit more powerful and effective in a way that is not necessarily in the original. It's just, Jafar takes over. He's kind of the classic evil bad guy. I think Jasmine is one of the more interesting princesses in the Disney canon. Aladdin is kind of a fun lead. Genie's always fun. Robin Williams just kind of letting him do Robin Williams. He even gets to do a Jack Nicholson impersonation at some point, so that's fun. It was interesting when you watch it on Disney Plus. There's now a disclaimer before you watch that says, this is potentially not this is not necessarily an accurate representation of other cultures and stuff.
Yeah. Are you telling me they canceled and got rid of all Disney movies? They don't exist anymore because they put a warning? How dare they?
Yes, that's not what canceling is. Dumbasses on the internet. I mean, I also it's an interesting thing to see because it's something we see more and more often now. Obviously, as a guy in his 20s, going into this is not necessarily representative of Middle Eastern culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is value in being just even putting that as a concept out there. I don't think that there's anything harmful in having even a small child go, oh, maybe this is just remember this is a story, not a representation of an entire culture. I do think that is valuable, especially if you're a small kid watching Aladdin on Disney Plus, you may not have much other exposure to the Middle East. And I do think even just putting the basic idea out there of this is not necessarily what this place is like is good because it stops even young children from having pre-existing biases about a region based on something that is not accurate to that region.
Yeah. It's also just advice to parents that are hey, maybe you want to, talk to your kids about this and not just leave them alone. And honestly, as an adult, I find this words helpful because sometimes our minds can be stuck in the nostalgia of it all and be a little blinded to the reality of what it may be because we kind of live in this, violent tinged world that it helps me rephrase my thinking about it in I think a helpful way, in a lightning way. And it doesn't mean the movie's bad or hate it, just helps you think about how it affects other people. I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that watch Disney movies as a kid and then grow up and have that oh wow moment that wow, Dumbo has racist characters in it. I don't think as a young child you necessarily understand that. And so I think there's a lot of people who and obviously you get some backlash because there's people who just don't want to acknowledge or comprehend that something that they liked as a kid potentially has harmful portrayals in it. I think that anyone who is at least an open and minded enough to consider that is, I feel like if you're just like, this feels like a baseline level, like it feels like in some weird ways an intelligence test. Like if you're smart enough to realize that stuff you watched as a kid is not representative of the world, and that maybe your 6-year-old viewpoint isn't something that is the same as your 25-year-old viewpoint, then like you won't have a problem with this. If you really want to get stuck in the rose tinted world of a 6-year-old where like it's just characters and you can't see that stuff, I mean, I think that says more about you than it says about Disney putting this kind of disclaimer in front of their movie.
But I think it's also, people need to know it's okay to still like the movie, even despite the things. Because I think that's what it is. It's a defensiveness. Like, if I can't say I like this movie more, because if I do, people are going to call me a racist, and I'm just going to fight against this whole thing and say it shouldn't happen. And it's just that defensiveness of, what you like, and defensiveness of thinking you're going to be labeled things that you don't want to be labeled, rather than just coming to terms with stuff you love has this, and it's okay to still love it. You just need to reckon with it.
Absolutely. It is totally acceptable to acknowledge that things are problematic or not representative of a culture, a type of mental illness, like literally anything. It's okay to acknowledge that things are not perfectly representative or accurate, but also still enjoy them as fiction. Because what it is at the end of the day is Aladdin is a fictional movie. It's not designed to be a documentary. And so it's okay that it's not perfectly accurate, but it's also okay to acknowledge that while watching the thing, so you don't walk away from it thinking it's accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it's very accurate, because I have seen the Genie before, and he has also already just done tons of jokes. I'm like, slow down, Genie.
Does he do? Yeah.
And I didn't even make any wishes. I was so distracted from the jokes.
Because that's the game right there.
I would say if I got a lamp and it turned out it was Robert Williams Genie, my patience would last about 5 minutes before I'm like, you need to go back in your lamp. This is too much.
See, honestly, I think that most people, if they found Robin Williams in as the Genie, would act exactly like Jafar. It would be like, shut up. Here's the 3 things you're going to do for me. Now go away. Because you're like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. Good. Those are my 3. Peace out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now we've talked about, disclaimers before movies. Let's move on to our main production, which is, of course, the wonderful film I Love You, Man, which we both love. I'm going to make Zack do his famous plot synopsis.
I never know when you're going to throw this on me anymore. So, I Love You, Man. There's Paul Rudd playing Paul Rudd. He's lovely. He's charming. He's getting married to Rashida Jones, playing Rashida Jones. Honestly, playing Rashida Jones. This is your whole criticism. And
oh no, this is except it works in this movie in the way I don't like. I could take it in the movies. Like she's perfect in this movie.
So she comes to realize that he doesn't have many friends, and his best friend might be his mom. So he goes on a bunch of guy dates looking for, some male friends, somewhat just to have life outside of her, but also the movie concept that he needs a wedding party, which is a little sillier version put it in. I mean, he had a great friend in their old guy. We'll talk about that. He should just settled with that. That was a solid friendship. I love him. And eventually, right before he gives up, he meets him at a real estate listing that Paul Rudd is trying to sell. That is Lou Ferrigno's real estate. He meets Jason Segel's character playing Jason Segel, who is like a weird combination of laid back and brash simultaneously. Like he is very upfront with a lot of his comments. I think the truthfulness and the openness is what draws Paul Rudd's character to him. And the desperateness of Jason Segel's character is what drives him to Paul Rudd. But they became friends. He's going to be the best man at his wedding. Shenanigans take place. Plane shit. There's no plane shit, but there should be plane shit. And there's Rush involved. There's bases. There's Shoulder Trulia doing an Elmo voice, which also is how I sounded when I was a little kid. They all get married. It's all a happy ending. They break up, both breakups, him and Rashida Jones and him and Jason Segel, because it is doing parallel lines of the rom-com, but also using those rom-com tropes for the friendship. So there's still the inevitable breakup scene between him and Jason Segel, and the inevitable comeback at the wedding meetup. It's like the honorary bride coming back, and they have a great, lovely moment. I love it, man. It's sweet. It's funny. There's so many great small lines.
It's pretty fantastic.
It's great.
It's you mentioned Joe Truglio, which let's start like we'll work our way in. Let's start with where the place is. This is kind of like let's start with like 2000s comedies.
Yeah,
we'll work our way in. This is very much in line with a lot of 2000 comedies in that the supporting cast is loaded with people who would go on to lead movies or lead shows. So you have Joe Truglio, you have Andy Samberg as his brother, you have Aziz Ansari as like a guy he fences with. It has the classic components of it's just loaded with, people who would go on to do other stuff. Nick Kroll is another guy who's fencing. He'd go on to have his own show. Like these are people that at this point in their careers were bit players and then would go on over the years to just become bigger parts of like comedies.
But combined with some character, like Joe Truglio is not someone who just get bigger, but he's been around, for a decade at that point. Same with Rob Hubel, kind of doing just the LA comedy thing, different improv groups. Joe Truglio is already a Wet Hot American Summer. That movie is very important to me. So that is a figure. But they were just kind of that guys of comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's popped in everything.
Well, Rob Hubel is just one of those, like you see him and he's one of those people, I don't think anyone knows his name, but he's in everything.
Yeah.
Like, he's AJ, the boyfriend that Holly Flax goes off and gets on The Office. And you don't like him because you want her to be with Michael. Like, but he's that guy. He's in, like, if you look through his career, he has 1 or 2 episode roles on so many different comedy TV shows.
Like so Seth Morris is one of those. Seth Morris is a real LA improv guy that appears in everything. He's one of the friends at the poker party. Has like no lines, but he's just such a big comedy figure. That's weird. Jerry Minor. That's also at that party.
Larry Wilmore plays the minister at the end. He's kind of a relatively, like you see, he just pops up and stuff all the time.
Yeah. The weirdest connection for me, the third biggest star when I saw this movie, in my eyes, after Jason Segel and Paul Rudd, was the actor Josh Cook, who who becomes Andy Samberg's partner, and by the end that he meets at the gym. He was in the sitcom Committed that lasted 1 season. I was his biggest fan by far. It's like, that's the Committed guy. It's probably why I saw the movie. I like the Committed guys in this for 2 minutes.
That's to be honest, that's kind of hilarious. But not surprising because that's like kind of what this movie has a lot of.
Yeah, and Jay, I cannot pronounce his name properly, sorry, but Jay Chandrasekhar, who's part of the oh my gosh, like Super Troopers group.
Yeah, he's the Super Trooper guy. Yeah,
that Paul Gambly part is just all like comedy. That guy's or the poker party.
Yeah, I mean it's an entire movie of just people, and then there's like they'll throw like a random J.K. Simmons in there as the dad.
Jamie completely blipped on Thomas Lennon, who's really good in the movie in a part that could be problematic. I think he plays with the right touch to avoid it from being any kind of like gay panic joke. I think it's a little sweeter than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's really good as just like the character that is kind of the bridge between Rudd starting out looking for a friend, having the weird like guy thinks he's gay. I mean, to be fair, Paul, why are you having an 8:00 dinner with like another dude? It's just you're sending weird signals.
But they never make the joke like it's a horrible thing. It's just like he's just gay, so just,
Rudd just looks more shocked.
It's just a miscommunication of it all. That was like the humor, not the panic of it all.
It really, but they just play it as like Rudd is more surprised because he just didn't expect it. He's not necessarily scared of it. It doesn't necessarily freak him out. He's just like, I was just standing there and he just kissed me. And I was like,
then afterwards, he has to explain to Rashida Jones. He's like, oh yeah, the guy kissed me. It was a big misunderstanding. He's just like kind of chill about it. And the clean the mouse joke is real funny. Because the movie is filled with small little lines that may or may not be improv. But Paul Rudd delivers perfectly because he's oh my gosh, now I'm gonna blank on it. But after he's cleaned his mouth, he says, "I'm gonna use Comet" or whatever.
I need
like a half-second moment.
There's just really good moments. There's all those like small bits when like he's in the process of trying to find the friend. Oh, like the really weird bit with Andy Samberg talking about how getting gay guys is boring to him, so he tries to turn straight guys. Or the really fun joke that just keeps coming back about how the dad's best friends are Samberg and Hank Mardukas, some random dude that just.
And it comes back. Hey, Hank Mardukas looks cool.
Hank Mardukas gets referenced like 3 times in the movie, and then he's just there in the end during the wedding, like giving the thumbs up.
He gets a half of a second. He's probably like John Hamburg, the director's dad, or something that gets to be thrown in there to be Hank Mardukas. But I feel like that's what's, everything's kind of has a weird gentleness to it. Everything's calm and friendly and nice. The conflict is very minimal. I think that's why I love this movie. It is just a very easy watch because the conflicts are I would say one real and never overblown. It never gets melodramatic like other like rom-coms because this is a rom-com. But like other rom-coms could be, and then the jokes, like there's a couple big bits, like there's the puking bit and other things, but otherwise it's all just like still toned down and realistic and kind of sweet in a lot of ways.
Well, they do the classic. No, go ahead.
But I would try to tie us back to what we want to do, which is talk about 2009's comedy, because I think it does something that sets it distinct from what else was happening on. And the Judd Apatow has a lot of heart, but I feel like this avoids kind of the grandness of it, of the raunch of it all. Like there's some raunchy bits, but it's never primarily what's treading in. I think it's just a little softer.
Well, it does 2 things. One, it does the rom-com twist at the end where you have to separate the couple slightly and then bring them back together. But it does that on a really small scale. The conflict between them is you're spending too much time with this guy, and the conflict with the guy is like, you're being weird. Why are you doing it? Like, it feels human. A lot of times in these movies, it's like, our final conflict is going to be this huge blow up to the point where as an audience member, you go, why are they getting back together? How are they getting back together? This seems too big for them to get back together. In this movie, it's like, okay, I understand. They had a fight. She goes to her friends and he comes the next day and goes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. But like, you understand why in that moment, them as a couple are able to reconcile because the problem in the first place wasn't that big. It was just, not great communication. And like, you weren't prioritizing your time right. Like but it was really simple, like basic relationship stuff, rather than like you've been lying about having a child for 9. It's not a huge twist. It's just like it's the most, but it's also like something you see coming. You're like, of course they're gonna have a problem because he is devoting too much time to his friendship. Like you see it, like you see the gradual process, like you see them start and like he has a normal balance between friends and his girlfriend, and then it just starts progressing. You're like, dude, you're spending like 90% of your time with your friend. And then 7% of your time at work, and like 0.5% of the time with your girlfriend. Like you barely like there's even like lines in the movie where like you see it getting set up, like where she'll say like, "Man, I haven't seen you in like a couple weeks," and it's like, dude, how are you living with this woman and getting married to her, and then like you're not even seeing her at the same time?
Yeah, it was an inevitable conflict that needed to happen, but also there's an inevitable makeup. Like it's an inevitable conflict that is solvable and it has to happen to be able to move forward rather than you having any fear that they're actually going to break up or the relationship's ruined. It's just, this is part of the plot and the movie knows it has to deal with it and it has to have those characters come, because it's also not the breakup the movie cares about as much, because it does care about the Jason Segel breakup more. That's the one that's slightly more dramatic, that he has to come at the like right second and make up more routine. But the Rashida Jones makeup is more routine. Even when he comes to Jamie Presley's house, I think Jamie Presley is really great in this.
She is really good.
And it just seems like she knew it was going to happen, just like waiting for it. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get her. She's coming down, and no one knew that was anything big. There's no animosity that's happening. It's just like we need to have a conversation.
Right. That's part of what makes it work, is that Jamie Presley doesn't overreact. It's not like he knocks on the door and she opens, you like, why the fuck are you here? Like there's never a response from her that like she really hates it, because she's also acting like the movie wants you to act, which is just like, yeah, they had a fight. Couples have fights. Like it's not necessarily the end of the world. And like the movie very clearly is telling you this is reconcilable. Like a lot of times you watch rom-coms and it's like, you like a flaw you see a lot of times is you can't tell me that a relationship has this massive problem and then get them back together and that not feel odd. Like I feel like that's like, sometimes you see that in rom-coms and it's just like, you can't have a massive blow up and then 15 minutes later, just be back together. Also, secondarily, another thing this movie does in comparison to the Apatow ones is it's just much better at ending. It's just okay getting to this place of the wedding and just moving on. Like I like
drag it out. Yeah,
it does not drag it out. This is like one of the big, I like Judd Apatow comedies a lot. We both do. There's a lot of them we like. They're both a lot very good. He has a very big. He has a. No, me too. He has a problem ending his movies. They drag on way too long. The conflicts are too much. Like sometimes it just becomes too big. Like I mean, a lot of this, you can. Like Knocked Up and This Is 40 are two movies that like the conflicts in those movies are a little bit large.
I'm really mad at you, and I can't have this conversation.
No. But like, I don't think the conflicts are necessarily unwarranted, but they do. Yeah. I think they take too long. Those movies could be tightened up.
They take long. Yeah.
I like those movies. Like I enjoy both of those movies, but they definitely could be shortened a little. Like there's a difference between this is an hour.
Should be like 2 hours longer. I need the Apatow cut.
Here we go. No, but like I like the fact that this is an hour 45. They get to the wedding. Him and Rashida Jones are reconciled. Siegel shows up. They reconcile, and then the movie is smart enough to realize there's nothing more you can do. That's the end. The story is over. Everyone's happy. They're back together. The friendships they've had their ups. They've had their downs. They've had their good points. And it's okay to just move on at that point. Like you don't need to give us 30 minutes extra or try to make it more than it needs to be. Like I think they're smart in ending it where they do.
Yeah, actually, and I've seen this this is my 5th or 6th time watching I Love You Man, and I was caught off guard again just how sudden it ends. I think I'm just so trained by comedies that they were going to have some kind of like what life is like after this, and like him being there with like the kids and doing this, but no, it's like they get married and it's over and like goes to skywriting or not skywriting, but it's like a banner. And it's just like, oh, yeah, we don't need anything else. That's perfect. But I was definitely in my mind that there was like 10 more minutes.
It's funny you say that because I had the same thought watching it as well, which is like, so they get up there and he's just like, I'm going to stand up at the party. I'm like, okay, what are they going to do now? What's their next 15, 20 minutes of this movie? Because there's got to be 15 more. And they're just like, nope, end credits. And during the end credits, you see them like singing on stage and Jolo Truglio's making out with Rishi Jones' friend and Sydney tries to make another toast, and Paul Rudd dives in front of him. And it's like, that's good end credit stuff.
Classic wedding party stuff, which all movies should have wedding party stuff.
But it's also the perfect stuff to put in the end credits. Like, that's perfect. Like, you get like your 15-second clip of this, you get your 15-second clip of that, and you just play it there in the credits, and that works perfectly. Yeah, it's just a really good ending. And I think that's something that at times, over time, comedies really got longer. So, like, in the early 2000s, they were pretty short. By 2009, when this movie comes out, this is when the comedies are starting to have the problem being, 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's when you start having a problem. Is your comedy? A lot of comedies don't have enough material, for an over 2 hour long movie.
I'm not going to have this conversation. I understand the point. I know that's the majority take, and I'm real in the minority, which is I like my comedy is lengthy. I like to hang out. I like to be around people I like for a long amount of times. Lengthy comedies tend to really work for me to adapt how late it does. But I understand the hate, but I also do appreciate the tightness when I see it. And the tightness, this movie's not tight, but in a lot of ways, because it's very just kind of loose and chill. But the tightness as far as pacing, not needing to add on and tack on more things.
Well, I think it is pretty tight. There's not a lot of wasted scenes in this movie. Everything, like, they let them hang out as characters.
I guess they're not wasted if it's about chemistry building, and character building.
Yeah, there's not this.
There's not a lot of plot. That's why I said it's not tight. There's very minimal plot to it.
No, I agree.
It's not the point.
This movie doesn't try to make Peter Clavin sit through 30 minutes of going on different dates with guys at the beginning, just so we can see him fail a bunch of times. We don't need to see that in the movie.
I kind of want to watch 30 minutes of dates. I'm all for this.
Zack, you are like the worst studio executive ever. You're like, I would like a 4-hour comedy.
No, I think Paul Rudd should be on screen for 6 hours at a time minimum.
Wow. This is okay. I'm not going to argue this because I don't think that's the correct take, but I do think this movie, you're right. It doesn't have a lot of plot, but I don't think it wastes a lot of scenes. Every scene has a purpose, even if that purpose is just we are getting to watch Rudd and Siegel become friends in front of our eyes. And I think that's what is probably the most enjoyable part of this movie. It's just, it is fun to watch people become friends and connect over shared interests and things they like. And it does a really good job going from like the initial awkwardness of you sort of know somebody and you're sort of vibing with them, but you're not, you don't know each other that well, to like getting more and more information on each other, and then you have your first fight, and you're like, that's kind of like that's a real point where like they do really like each other as friends, but like they also have behaviors they need to correct.
I don't think you've ever heard me scream before, but that's the classic Zack scream. You got it.
But then, like, it's just a fun friendship movie. Like, that's fun watching them be friends.
I want to make another connection to like rom-com tropes that kind of just occurred to me, but especially with the rom-coms of the 2000s, late 2000s, where there's traditionally the slobbier man, child, boy, or man. Boy,
yes,
man.
The Step Brothers.
The man child. Yeah.
The Step Brothers trope.
That you will have to, and this is also really playoff knocked up to, right? You have the man child that learns to grow up and mature from the woman that learns to loosen up a little bit. And it's still doing the same tropes, but with Paul Rudd, who has to kind of loosen up and kind of live like the 20s that he never really, got to live, it seemed like, as far as hanging out with people and, jam sessions. And Jason Segel, who seems very successful, but also having to come to terms with everyone kind of growing up around him. And that's why I think it does better too, because neither of them need to change that much. You're not really seen as like they're not overly kiddish, and Paul Rudd is not. Still seems a lot of fun and loose, and he has great relationships with his family and his future wife. But just that, like a little bit, it's just those small growths that we can experience through actual friendships, rather than big changes that we need to go through. That I found pretty lovely as well.
It's in some ways more accurate to just like human beings. Like Step Brothers is funny, but like also most people don't have to, in the course of a very short period of time, go from being like a 12-year-old in a 40-year-old's body to like there is a scene in that movie where he literally buys toilet paper and is celebrating the act of buying toilet paper. Like that's how far he has to go. In this movie, it's more like, Paul Rudd, it's okay to talk. Like it's okay to talk about stuff. Like, you could just have a conversation. Right. But like, it's like really basic stuff that like, as somebody watching this movie, you're like, of course people talk about that. But then like, it is kind of interesting how Paul Rudd is really uptight in some ways. Like he's not necessarily like, it's not necessarily affecting his life. It's not terrible.
Not uptight as much as just like awkward, uncomfortable, just socially awkward, like all of us.
He does feel a little bit like, Paul Rudd does feel a little bit like he was born 35 years old. And he's always been 35 years old in the movie.
Also Segel, Paul Rudd in general, and has that appeal.
Yeah, and he was born at 35, but he's always looked like he was 20. And he kind of still looks like he's in his 20s today. Like he's aged incredibly well. And then Jason Segel is kind of like a guy who never really got past like 2021. Like he's still a little bit in that like late college phase, mid 20s, where like he wants to just be kind of irresponsible and have throwaway relationships. Yeah. But he's also having like it's Peter.
It's not that bad. He still has a successful job. He's he's living fine if that's the life he chooses. It's more having to come to terms with like he can't continue that with everyone else. Like there's not just always going to be endless hangout sessions. That's just not how life around us revolves. So it's a smaller change than like I'm a mess of a human and I need to grow up and get responsible. He's mostly is responsible.
Right. It's not like he doesn't have to do some kind of giant change. He just needs to acknowledge that like. His biggest thing is he has to acknowledge that he can live that life if he wants to live it. But that the people he's been friends with for years can't keep living that life because they have consistent full-time jobs or they have kids or they have a wife or they have family. Like they have other responsibilities in life. They're not, he can continue to live the 20s where you kind of don't necessarily have the responsibilities. But, if he wants to do that, he can't expect everyone to just follow him along in a path that they're no longer on. So, it is really these small changes that each character has to make, which in some ways makes it much lower stakes. It makes it much lower stakes, which is kind of nice. Like, no one has to go from being like a complete loser to a good person. Mm-hmm. And neither of the relationships are like terrible. It's just like they need to fix small stuff. So I think in some ways that's probably one of the reasons you like it, is that it doesn't present you with like these ridiculous, you have to change everything about yourself in order to succeed in life.
I do want to address, I think there's one issue that hangs in the movie, which I still love it for, all the other reasons, and mainly it's rewatchability, so it doesn't hurt me that much. But I think the one thing that ages really bad that they don't view as a thing that needs to be fixed with Jason Segel's character is just misogyny. His like kind of calm misogyny. I think the golf scene really does not work. because it's just like I don't play sports with women, and it doesn't like condemn that opinion enough, and more so rewards that opinion.
Well, it's weird because it is misogynistic. I also understand it in the context of the scene why you do not want to play golf with that one woman.
Trying to say that you don't want to play golf?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the concept of saying I don't play sports with women is obviously misogynistic, not good. But then they also give you an example where you're playing golf and she hits you with a golf ball and she's like holding your entire team back. Like, so like it's a weird.
I just think that's like rewarding that point of view because they addressed that point of view before, and they're saying, yeah, he has every right to believe it this way.
I do think that if the movie was to move forward a couple of years, one of the things they would do is he would say that same statement. He would be exactly the same way he speaks, but the golf scene would be less affirming of his position. Like she would not be as crap at golf as she is. Like she would be at least competent to the point where she could hit the ball down the fairway and they could move on and they could kind of play golf. Even if he didn't like her as a relationship, that would not be like, because that scene is a little bit like, man, she is the worst. Like she's terrible. She like injures him and she's missing like 25 times. Like she's like a joke in that scene to the point where you're like you agree with the people yelling at her, which I believe is Matt Walsh, by the way, from Veep and like several things. He's another random comedy dude. He's in like 2 seconds of something in this movie.
I just think there's a lot of like low-key like misogyny that was just part of the late aughts culture that kind of runs throughout there. I think this because it also revolves around the idea of like men need male friends and females need female friends, and there's not like a crossover or co-ed friendships are not the same or have the same impact. So that's still like that's always lingered on me. I'm someone who has easily made friends with females my whole life, so I think even in 2009 that kind of rubbed me a little bit.
I do think there's a difference, though. I think there's a difference if you're a guy having a guy friend versus a girlfriend, and the stuff and I don't mean girlfriend like relationship. I mean like having friends of both genders. I think you can have friends of both genders. I do think those relationships are different. I think it's impossible to ignore the fact that they are different.
I don't know. My bachelor party was 2/3 girls, so just live your best life. 2/3 women. I'm beating her now too.
Wow, nice job, Zack.
Yeah.
No, I think that in some ways it feels less a 2009 perspective than it feels like it is another part of Sydney being stuck in like the late 20s, like the early 20s.
Kind of frat attitude.
He does have a little bit of a.
Is that a word?
I think he definitely. I think he was probably in a frat, if we're being honest. Yeah. Like he kind of has that mentality. Like he was in. Like if you just look at the pictures on his wall, he clearly is somebody who has had a all male group of friends, and that's the only people he hung out with. Like there's he is more. But I also think the movie does it sometimes it does somewhat commentate on the fact that Peter seems much happier with his life, and Peter is much better at having relationships with people of both sexes. Like Peter is able to walk around his office. Like he's seen as the successful guy in his office because part of it is just like he can say hi to the receptionist or hi to his female coworkers in a way that's not creepy or weird. He's not doing weird guy shit like his enemy in the office who's like watching freaking porn videos and
That's how I was going to address this too. That's I think how I'm able to rationalize it. Is I think even though there's characters that kind of judge Peter for his lack of male friends and think it's weird, I don't feel like the movie really judges him as much as thinking there's just something to gain from him having male friends. But they don't really say like this guy has a problem because he doesn't make male friends. They just say he just kind of lived a different life. He's just someone who is like me, maybe he's just got along with women better. It is just like maybe he'll evolve with an actual male friendship. There's characters that for sure, but like this guy is odd. But I think the movie is like this guy's great. Like just because he's not as bro as everyone, there's still like reward or purpose for these type of men.
And I think intentionally the characters who are judging him for not having a lot of male friends are not necessarily the characters we rely on. It's sort of the Jamie Presley and Jon Favreau couple who are very funny in the movie, but we're not really supposed to take them seriously because they have a terrible relationship and it's kind of bizarre and weird and everybody else kind of laughs at them behind their back.
Because if the movie judges anybody the highest, it's Jon Favreau and his friends, which is much more on the toxic masculine side of like we're going to have poker nights and no women are allowed in the house and binge drink beers kind of thing. And I think the movie criticizes that more than anything.
Right, and then Favreau's very transactional relationship with his wife, which is weird, but also kind of it's good for comedy
because anti-socialness in general. That I think that judges too.
They're a very funny couple, if not necessarily the people you would want to look at for relationship advice. Let's talk about the 2 stars for a second. We kind of started talking about 2000s comedies and delved into the movie.
We've gone everywhere.
We really have. Let's talk about where this falls in the careers of Paul Rudd and Jason Segel. So this is the year after Forgetting Sarah Marshall and Role Models, and then 2 years after Knocked Up for Paul Rudd. So, 40-Year-Old Virgin is in 2005. Anchorman is in 2004. So he's doing good. But this is 2008 and 2009 is kind of when he starts to become a lead, because he starts doing stuff like Role Models. He does I Love You Man. He does Dinner for Schmucks. He does Our Idiot Brother. He does Wanderlust. He does This Is 40. That's the run up to 2012. And that's all movies where he is the lead in a comedy.
Yeah, and I think, the Judd Apatow supporting roles really helped him blow. Between Anchorman, Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, this guy is a star. He made himself a comedy superstar without having a lead. He was a name brand, and Friends at that time. He was also one. So between that, became a name brand that was you had to give this guy's movies. That's why he exploded so fast. He had 4 leads within 2 years all of a sudden. Because it's we probably should have had this guy movies 10 years ago. I think it faded a little bit. He started to spread his wings a little bit. He did a lot of indies, oddly, that I've seen a lot of them. So he does have more ambition than doing the mainstream comedies. He kind of got sucked up by the MCU, at this point, which takes a lot of time. But I think that late aughts career is a great streak that I think kind of goes underrated for comedy stars. I think at some point he kind of has became no one's going to put him in the top comedy legends, which in my eyes I feel he deserves. I think purely based on those last 5 years of the 2000s is I think a streak that I would put up with anybody. Also, Knocked Up is one of my favorite movies, and he's one of my favorite parts, and maybe that creates a lot of bias. But between Knocked Up, Small Scene and Walked Hard, that I think he's really good at, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, he's great, and Role Models and Getting the Lead. And I Love You Man. That's just a great end to the 2000s. And he does How Do You Know and fucks up his career. I don't think it's fucking up his career, but definitely.
Well, he also does Dinner.
Great in that movie, though.
He also does Dinner for Schmucks.
Yeah.
But then he does the kind of classic comedy thing, though. He does Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Role Models, I Love You Man, which is a great run. And I think the biggest reason he probably doesn't end up on people's list of comedy stars is that he does tend to his biggest movies are the movie where he's a supporting actor. He doesn't tend to lead the big movies.
Yeah.
He does a little bit suffer from the fact that he is the supporting character in a Jason Segel movie. He's the supporting character in a Steve Carell movie. He's the supporting character in a Will Ferrell movie. But then he does have a really classic comedy thing, which is that if you look at 2010 onwards, he does Dinner for Schmucks, How Do You Know, Our Idiot Brother, Wanderlust, This Is 40, Admission, All Is Bright, They Came Together, which is not necessarily a consistent run of good movies. But I don't think Rudd is necessarily bad in any of them.
No, I said he's great in How Do You Know. I was waiting for him to get Best Supporting Actor nomination. I think he's good in Admission. I think Prince Avalanche is a really underrated movie. It's a good Dave Gordon Green movie, and it's a really weird performance for him that I think should be seen to see how he gets by his rings. He's kind of this neurotic, odd kind of masculine way of being a street painter with Emil Hirsch. Yeah, it's an odd performance. I think is really great, and that's when you can see how his charm can kind of come through different layers that he can put in his character. That's always going to be there and help carry his performance. Mm-hmm. I'm also a large David Wayne fan, and it seems primarily where he's getting his leading roles are still coming from his relationship with David Wayne. Very important part of his career. Kind of really helped him find his comedy groove, because I think he's a little more of a well-rounded, or in the 90s, when he did Clueless, it's a comedy role, but also Halloween, He's kind of just like a journeyman actor, had no ground, I think. But once he started working, more with David Vermain, that really pushed him into, the comedy light and the comedy side of things, which is the right path for him.
Well, Role Models is really kind of the first movie where he pops as the lead. So,
which is David Wayne.
Which is a David Wayne movie. So, it's not surprising that he does Role Models, which is kind of, a little bit underseen, but also pretty well regarded. And then he happens to get stuff like, this movie and others in the years coming. I will admit,
his first huge broad comedy role was Wet Hot American Summer 2001 with David Wayne.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he's part of a very large ensemble in that movie.
Yeah.
So I would not consider that.
I would say a standout, memorable part. Like, that's one of the most big takeaways, though.
He is. He is, but I think that if we're going to talk supporting characters he pops at, he's going to pop way more in Anchorman, 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Knocked Up, just because they're significantly larger movies than Wet Hot. I will admit, if you look at his career, it's kind of sad what's been recently. It's been a lot of stuff you literally don't care about, or MCU movies.
Yeah, he's post prime, but that late kick, because he's threw him in being one of my favorite actors of all time just because of that streak.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does going forward, because I think there is a chance for him to really kind of reinvent himself in the mid 2020s. I think he has a real chance to have another run, because he's still good in the MCU movies. I think he's just stuck in a position where if you're shooting an MCU movie for 8 months, there's not necessarily a lot of other options to go out there and do.
But also, comedy kind of changed. He was a perfect fit for the Judd Apatow era of being real funny, but having a lot of heart to carry those movies, which is the whole Judd Apatow is about how what he brought to that era was how do you make things really funny, but also just realistic and moving and make your character real. And Paul Rudd is the definition of someone who is funny in a realistic way. It's not big gags. He doesn't need to have a bit. He's just naturally funny, which I think that has not existed too much, out of the early 2010s. That kind of naturally funny.
I also think that if he wanted to do comedies again, if he wanted to make that choice, he could probably get it done. He's a bankable enough star that he could get something done if he wanted to. I think he honestly is probably just kind of good at this point, cashing those Ant-Man paychecks, which have to be pretty great.
Have at it. Yeah, he deserves it.
I agree. Let's talk about Jason Segel for a second. So
another one who I was ready to say, one of my favorite actors around working actors, I would have said in 2010.
This guy, he has such a bizarre career, if we're being honest. Because in 2007, he does Knocked Up. In 2008, he does Forgetting Sarah Marshall. So that's his big first movie.
Well, in the How I Met Your Mother train at that point.
Right, because that starts in 2004.
5.
I Love You, Man. Oh, 2005? Sorry, my apologies. I Love You, Man in 2005. He does Get Him to the Greek in 2010. I guess he's barely in. No, he does a character in Despicable Me. He's barely in. He does Gulliver's Travels, the one with Jack Black, which I've never seen. I've never heard anyone talk about. He does Bad Teacher with Cameron Diaz, which is bad. He's a tiny bit player in Friends with Benefits, so he goes on a real rough streak after that.
Yeah,
he's very good in Jeff Who Lives at Home.
That's his vibe. That's where he works best, which is
2011 is a good
broken yet charming actor.
2011 is a good year for him because he gets Jeff Who Lives at Home and The Muppets. The next year he gets The 5-Year Engagement, and This Is 40. This Is the End in 2013. 2014 is Sex Tape, which is terrible, and he's also not very good in. He really should stop working with Jake Kasdan because he does Sex Tape and Bad Teacher with him, and both those movies are terrible. 2015 is maybe his best performance ever, which is End of the Tour. He was really good in that.
I mean, The Muppets exist, but let's move on.
True, fair. Fair. And then since then, he's done something called The Discovery and something called Cotton Sunday, which don't have a presence in, the film landscape. And then most recently, Our Friend, which is...
I've seen The Discovery. That's another... Yeah, so The Discovery...
It's a shockingly good cast.
Yes.
It's a Netflix movie.
I think that's where his interest is those kind of movies, which is these kind of thoughtful, even emotions on their sleeve kind of movies, because that's what Our Friend is. That's what Discovery. I think that's what his show kind of revolves around too. Dispatch from Elsewhere, Jeff Who Lives at Home. I think these emotionally broken men, that's where his heart lies. I think his early creative career, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and 5-Year Engagement, he kind of combines that emotionally broken with the broader comedies.
Yeah.
So that's always, I think, is deeply built inside of him. And I think it's just gotten much more to the serious side in his late career. And I think as he's like aged into midlife, kind of exploring this, the sadness of midlife at this point through these movies, which I think is interesting. I think he's a great actor in that. I think he's a very specific actor. I think a lot of the comedies like Sex Tape and Bad Education don't work because I don't think he has that broad of comedy really in him, especially anymore.
Well, they're also like, I think he could do those movies. Those movies also don't give him anything to work with. Like those are nothing movies. He is not a Will Ferrell, Seth Rogen, where you can put them in a movie and kind of give them a nothing concept that they can kind of finesse it. He's not necessarily that much of an improver. I do think you see a very clear trend. How I Met Your Mother ends in 2014. Sex Tape is in 2014. That's kind of the last year he does real broad comedy. Like, I think in some way, maybe, and I'm just hypothesizing here, I think at the end of a long comedy TV show, you may be a little burned out on comedy and you may want to go do something else.
It seems like it's very selective. Like, I feel like he has chosen his career path since then very deliberately.
Well, if you look at his career, he's basically one movie a year from 2012 onward.
And everything that on paper seems like really just like smart choices, and they're much more on the indie side. He's not doing anything that's like, why would you ever want to do that? It's like a cash out. There's no cash outs other than Despicable Me 2, but I think that was earlier, right?
No, he's not in Despicable Me 2. He's just in the original
one.
He's like some random side character. And even if you look at his career, he's in some ways actively opting out of big movies. Like, he could have probably been in Muppets, in the second Muppets movie, if he wanted to be in the movie. He was an executive producer and writer on the first.
Yeah.
I think that's a clear choice that he did not want to be in that movie, that he's not in that movie.
He was just like, I accomplished my goals. That's what he kind of said. He's like, I accomplished my goals. I'm really happy we got this through. I don't feel that I have anything to give to a second movie. I think that's where his mindset is. He's going to take away. I think he thinks he has something to give. I think he's much more interested in the creative aspect of it. He's in all the things that he's best at is something that seems like there's a deep attachment to, or he had some creative play with it.
Absolutely.
Which I think is continued forward. So I still think he's a highly interesting actor. I feel bad I haven't watched the show. I think he's so great in Our Friend. That movie is not perfect. There's some issues, but he is a standout. And that doing what he does best. Like, he is this charming, great friend with moments of goofiness, but with a deep sadness that comes through at the right times. And it's I could watch him do that all the time.
Yeah. He has a really interesting career. Feels like somebody who he got those big bucks for a 9-year TV show. He probably has some sweet royalty checks and that stuff. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I can do whatever I want at this point. So I'm going to do these weird sci-fi movies or some random indie or stuff like that.
I don't want to say any specifics also because I don't want to mistakenly say things about him. But I know there's been some like demons that he has been battling through in this decade since his fame. So some problems that I think has also made him kind of rethink his career path.
Interesting.
I think he's been pretty open for. I'm just going to mistakenly say things.
Well, we hope you're not mistakenly saying anything.
I don't want to be like, it's heroin addiction and then not be on this. I'm saying heroin because I know it's not heroin addiction.
He did choose, yes, I was just looking this up. He did choose not to be in the Muppet sequel. That was an active choice on his part. And he not only chose not to act in it, he chose not to produce or write for it. So, like, he actively said, I'm done with this. That was my thing. Yeah. And he does a lot of, like, weird TV stuff because he just wants to do it for himself. Yet it's a lot of credit for him. He's really he's done what he wants to do.
I have the research back up, so I would say it now. But so he has battled with alcoholism, which is why I assumed it has been in AA meetings, and I think he's gone sober. But I think that's a big part of his, because I think that early 2010s, I think it's a big part of his shift in his attitude.
Interesting. Let's talk about a couple other components of the movie. We've kind of done the big outside stuff. Let's talk about Rush. I want to hear what Zach has. Zach, why don't you tell us what you think of Rush?
I kind of forgot we were talking about I Love You, Man. And so, like, why are we talking about Rush? What does that have to do with Jason Segel? Rush is not for me. I think when you play the right parts of the songs, it's fun. So, like, in this movie, it comes off enjoyable because some of the melodies are good. The voice is weird, but in a unique and fun way. But when you listen to the whole songs and it's much more about the virtuosity of the music playing, which does not interest me because sometimes virtuosity is an excuse for not making music that sounds pleasant or nice to hear for. It's just show-offy. I don't need show-off musicians. That's what Rush is. They are very show-offy.
But it's kind of perfect for like two people to jam out to. Like it works very effectively for them to sing to in an audience. Like the way the music is created to be showy and kind of a little overly dramatic really works well for the bromance aspect of them loving this band.
Definitely works for comedy singing because they just do a lot of like boop. It's if they're singing something a little more, earnest, it wouldn't have the same effect.
Yeah. Talking about the music of the movie, the song The Underdog by Spoon is like a classic comedy bit. It plays in, I think, Horrible Bosses. It's in like the Spider-Man movie. This is like something we hear a lot over montages in like comedy movies.
Yeah, I think some other Spoon songs appear in comedy movies as well because they have that real kind of cool vibe, especially of the late 2000s. I would love you to name 5 other Spoon songs right now.
I cannot. I know that one.
Can you name one?
No. I honestly only know that song because the minute it started playing, I was like, I've definitely heard that in another movie before.
Yeah,
because it's very recognizable.
Spoon's a great band. This movie does have great music taste. That's very specific with this time period too, where my music taste. I listen to a lot of new music, but definitely like what I like froze in 2009, 2008. Because I'm like, I just want indie rock like what it used to sound like. All the bands I still love, all their albums are bands who were in their prime in 2009, like Spoon. I still think Spoon makes great albums. But that's why I think this movie is self-aware of the Rush thing. That's like a goofy fandom to like, but because it shows its taste otherwise. In the soundtrack, there's multiple Vampire Weekend songs, which was really finding their groove in the late 2000s. Also, just like great comedy music because it's upbeat. Has a little bit of like an Afrobeat sound to it to just make you feel pleasant. I think they play it when they're at the fish bar, which is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. That song they don't play at that scene. I could be making it up. There's also like Matt Costa, who's a musician. I always think I'm the only person who knows. There's a lot of pleasant music tastes, throughout this movie. I always think that indie rock is kind of the soundtracks that for most people fade away, but because it's stuff I'm aware of, I'm like all, kind of pumped when I hear it.
Indie rock kind of is just good for soundtracks.
Yeah.
It just has like, because the great thing about indie rock is because it is a little bit less well known, people can come to it in a movie with less of an opinion and less of a relatable thought about it to begin with. Like if you play really famous rock, people are going to have thoughts about it to begin with. And that's kind of the great thing about indie rock is you just throw it out there and it can fit the movie rather than people just hearing the song that they already know. Like it can be like, it blends better with the movie than something more famous would.
There's always also just like the right level for comedies without being too hard, without being too quiet. It's just like kind of like you can vibe and chill. That's why it's like played in bars and restaurants all the time. It's still kind of the indie rock scene because it's just the right level. It's very listenable.
Well, right. The Underdog by Spoon is a really chill kind of hangout song. Even the tune is very chill. You're like, it makes you think of, oh, somebody's driving around, oh, somebody's walking down the street. Like it's very chill, but like very enjoyable in that aspect.
It maintains the good feelings. It's also positive. Everyone should listen to indie rock. It's the best. Lucas should also listen to indie rock, specifically the national album, The Boxer. Or Boxer. Oh my God, it's The Boxer. It's just Boxer.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it off screen.
We'll talk about it. Lou Ferrigno's this movie. I love when people use this is a really specific comedy thing that you see in the late aughts, early 2010s, is using famous people as themselves in movies. Is like the Ted thing, Sam Jones, and this is Lou Ferrigno. It's just kind of a really great bit that like he's selling Lou Ferrigno's house. So they're randomly at Lou Ferrigno's house, and there's like a giant statue of him, and there's like a picture of the Hulk. It's just like a kind of a good bit, and then you get to have Lou Ferrigno for a couple scenes, and Lou Ferrigno's just good playing himself in movies. Like it's always
he's pretty good. Yeah,
always an enjoyable bit. That I'm just always gonna like. Like he's just good at it.
And they just like bring back that bit in different ways that are worthwhile. Like bringing him back for the wedding is kind of unexpected that he's in the wedding party.
Oh, it's awesome!
And he's just a great person to look at. I love the wedding party so much. I want Lou Ferrigno and the old guy. Me and all three of them are gonna have a poker night. Just me, the old guy, Lou Ferrigno. It's
an amazing reveal when he walks in with his groomsmen, and it's like giant Lou Ferrigno, a little tiny old dude, Elmo voiced Jolo Truglio, his dad, his brother, the random gay dude who kissed him. It's just like it's a great a great collection of them, and it's just like a good visual bit to see them all together because they don't, because the bridesmaids walk in, and there's like they're all roughly the same age, they're all roughly the same height, they kind of make sense as a group together, and then he walks in with his groomsmen, and it's this random collection of like there's like it's like 50-year age gap, and there's like huge height differences and size differences, and it's just it's a great visual bit.
I think what also makes the wedding party work and having Lou Ferrigno there, and that's anyone that kind of had a conflict with Paul Rudd's character or kind of seemed like they were the joke, like oh my gosh, now like in the actor's name. Like the gay guy, right? They could seem like there was a joke on him, but bringing them all back added to that lack of mean spiritedness. Like, oh, they're all still cool with each other. Everything's good. Like these are not horrible people. Like they're still welcome to this wedding party. It just added to the sweetness of it all, and has like the sweetest moment of the movie, which is when J.K. Simmons says, you're also my best friend, and of course Hank Frondukas. But and when Andy Samberg gets so happy to be the best man, hold the ring, it just makes all the relationships that Paul Rudd had throughout the movie kind of come full circle in a super sweet way, including the Lou Ferrigno one. It seems like this antagonistic relationship, but everything solved itself and in came to kind of a sweet working friendship.
Absolutely. Let's talk quickly about the billboards. The billboards are really funny.
They don't work, right?
They're hilarious.
There's no way tons of people call saying, I want you because you're half naked on this billboard.
I will say this. I think some of them do work. Okay. The James Bond one I think works. Some of them, you can barely tell they're Paul Rudd. Some of them are too photoshopped to the point where like they stop looking like the person. Some of them work. Some of them are very weird. And I think that's what kind of makes it great is that you can understand in the moment why he's horrified, but also sort of understand why these ridiculous billboards would get people to call. Because I do think if you were like looking for somebody to sell your house and you saw a bunch of ridiculous billboards like that, you might give them a call just because you're like, that's way more interesting than any other realtor is going to be. So like, why not? I'll give them a shot.
Yeah. But also that works well because it's like a fake out. That's when you think like the big drama is going to happen, that he like misused this money that he borrowed from him. Like that's such a dooming red flag when you hear him want to borrow money and he's this like suspicious investor. But when it turns out he's just like maybe mindedly trying to do something thoughtful for Peter. Like it all comes out still in a sweet way, and it just becomes kind of a goofy gag and just the right level of conflict to move that relationship forward and move the drama forward without being over the top. It becomes an issue of him just like doing too much and not thinking about what Peter wanted rather than him stealing the money like you think it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of wonderful because when he asks him for the money initially, you're like the person sitting there going, no, you're like screaming at Paul Rudd, no, don't give him $8,000. What on earth are you thinking? This is gonna cause so many problems. And then it just turns out to be billboards. And that's kind of a wonderful like pivot because anytime that happens in a movie, almost 99% of the time, that person disappears with that money.
Yeah.
Or loses it being an idiot, like betting in, like buying into a pyramid scheme or something. But the fact that like, I also love the bit at the end where Siegel is just like, I don't know if you know this, like I'm actually a pretty successful investor. Like here's your $8,000. I don't really need this. Like I think there's like it is kind of fun because throughout the movie, he looks like he's almost homeless at times.
Yeah.
Like he dresses like there are definitely scenes where he's walking around on the beach with his dog, and you're like, are you a mentally ill person who like is close to homelessness? And then he just happens to actually be really successful. He's just choosing to like it's a choice. It's a choice rather than like being forced into that position by a lack of like a.
And that's when I think the movie shows a lack of judgment of that too. Like you can be you, Jason Segel, and do your thing. Because I think other movies at the time was like you need to change your life is horrible, but it's like you can live this life and still be a responsible adult simultaneously.
I think overall the movie's just trying not to be judgmental. Because I think, in fact, if you could judge Segel for a lot of stuff, like the sexism and the misogyny, like you could judge him for a lot of stuff. But in some ways, I think that movie is significantly less enjoyable. I think the movie does a good job of not condoning his behavior, but simultaneously, it's also not like, let's wag the finger every time he does something that we don't like. I think there's this like an acceptance of like people are going to be people. People are going to be flawed. They're going to do stuff that's not necessarily perfect or the right thing to do. But spending an entire movie beating them over the head of that and forcing Jason Segel to change every component of his character would be a really sucky movie that I don't think anyone wants to watch.
Yeah. I agree. This movie's great. It's sweet. It's calm. I can watch it every day.
Jason Segel, please don't give any more toasts or speeches about your friend needing more blowjobs, because it's not. Don't ever, if you see yourself saying that again, stop. Like hit yourself in the head with your glass. Just do anything to prevent that from occurring again, because that's such an awkward scene. And then the worst part is when he winks at her. He says it and he winks at her, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so awkward.
But I think the movie once again is smart with like it makes him also realize what a horrible speech that was. I think other ones like, what was wrong with that? I'm just telling the truth, which kind of is what you lead to that character. But he's like, I fucked up. Everyone hates me. I shouldn't have done that. I got carried away. So it shows some self-awareness of that character of how his words can come out, too.
Well, it's also a great moment that like really puts him vulnerable for the first time in the relationship. Paul Rudd has been the vulnerable one. Now he's the vulnerable one. You can see that there are insecurities in Segel. Like he has insecurities about people. Like he acts like he's so aloof and above everything. But then in that moment, you're really like, oh, he's a person that is insecure about saying something stupid in front of people that he wants to impress. Like he doesn't want these people to think he's bad because he really likes Peter as a friend.
He deeply wants to be liked. That's what kind of creates the whole friendship. Is he just wants a lot of people around him at all times and people to like him and give him positive attention. Which don't we all? Is that not why we do a podcast? Just want to be liked.
He does really feel like a person that like I think also if you jump this movie forward, there might be a little more discussion of like he does seem like a person who worries about his mental health issues if he's not like he needs people around him to prevent himself from going to necessarily like a low place. Like he does seem like really low every time he's by himself, like completely like isolated from his friends. Like he does seem to really like he takes rejection really hard, even if the rejection is literally like, I'm sorry, dude, I have to cancel last minute. Like he does seem to take that really hard. So I think it does definitely touch on like his mental health seems a little fragile. Like maybe he's going through some tough stuff, and that's maybe part of the reason why he's not.
And kind of very express those are the characters that Jason Segel seems drawn to, and maybe find something in is the people who have a lot of charm and are great friends, but that seek for friendships and likability tends to be, the cover for his, more complex, heartbroken soul.
He really does seem to have an interest in playing characters that have demons that are really like, David Foster Wallace is like a really good example of like playing a character that clearly had a lot of stuff going on and not all of it was good in his head. Like he had a lot of brilliant ideas and he also has a lot of really dark ideas that, put him in a really bad place mentally.
He's into internal conflict rather than external conflict, is where Jason Segel is drawn to.
Yeah, he doesn't really want to play a movie where he fights with everybody, but he wants that fighting to occur inside his head.
Yeah.
Zach, do you have any final thoughts on I Love You, Man?
Nope. I think other than, some of those massage ideas, I think this movie can hold up for generations, hopefully. And I hope this is something people can return to. And I know there's a huge fan base and kind of a cult fan base. So I hope it just is one that can, be last as well as, Step Brothers or Anchorman, the other ones at the time. Because I like it better. But I wonder what this movie's life would have been like if cable was still a thing, because it seems like a movie that could be on like Comedy Central or cable channel like repeatedly for generations. That would be how people found out How American Summer is that playing. Like maybe teens and kids would find it now for that just playing on cycle if TV existed the same way. But who knows? We'll never know.
Yeah. I think I like Comedies of Sarah probably more than you do, and this definitely for me is up near the top. It's it's fantastic. It's just a really enjoyable watch. I think it's really fun to watch. Friendships on like accurate friendships on screen is really enjoyable to watch, and like this movie has really it is like lower stakes. It doesn't like the friendship, it doesn't try to blow the friendship up to something more than it is, but it's just kind of really enjoyable watching these two guys become friends, talking about stuff, connecting over shared interests. And I think that is just kind of a movie that I'm always going to like. And then you happen to get people like Segel and Rudd who are just like really good together in this movie, and that pairing just really works. And you get a really great supporting cast around him. It's kind of the classic 2000s comedy. You got some good leads, you got some good supporting players, and you get like a very simple premise, and you just kind of let the actors do their thing. Like there's a lot of stuff in here that feels improv, and I think it really works. Really fun watch. Definitely go watch it again, because this is one of those movies you could just watch like 20 times. I don't think you'll ever get bored.
Yeah, one last thing before we go. I did put this notes, but I don't know if you see it. I do want to share, just because this is always the thing I remember, is what is your one favorite line if you have to pick one?
Oh.
This is because it's my main takeaway.
All right, give me yours.
Okay, I will always remember. I say I love the fish bar scene, but the joke that right away, and it always sticks out to me, is, wait, are you talking about hybrid cars? I thought we were talking about hybrid animals.
It's a great moment.
I think all jokes should revolve around hybrid animals.
It's a line that comes up a couple times, but I do appreciate the consistent joke throughout the film of why does every impersonation Peter does sound like a leprechaun? I think that's very funny. Whether he's doing James Bond or trying to do like a reggae singer, it somehow all sounds Irish, and I think it's just a good it's a good bit. With that being said, this is I Love You Man. We talked I Love You Man. Next week we'll be talking another movie both of us love, a very different movie, a much older movie, a black and white movie. We're going to talk It's a Wonderful Life, the best Christmas movie of all time, bar none, and also just genuinely an amazing movie you can watch any single time of the year. Zach, do you have a song for us, or are we heading out without a song?
I do have a song. This is where my focus has diverted to.
All right.
Count me down with drumsticks, my friend.
It's a Wonderful Life. Next week. Enjoy it. 3, 2, 1.
Picture yourself in the living room. Your pipe and slippers set out for you. I know that you think that it ain't too far, but I hear the call of a lifetime ring. Felt the need to get up for it. Oh, you cut out the middleman. Get free from the middleman. You got no time for the messenger. Got no regard for Lucas and Zack podcast. Got no fear of the underdog. That's why the pod will survive.